Okay, welcome to Ashir on Torah Anytime. We are up to Shmuel Beis, Perik Yudalet, and the last thing we left off was the tragic story with Amnon and Tamar, and then Avshalom came and he killed Amnon, and Avshalom ran away, and it was a triple tragedy because Tamar was violated, Amnon was dead, and Avshalom ran away. And he ran back to his grandfather from the other side. And Perik Yudal begins, Vayeda Yoav ben Tzeruya ki leiv hamelech al Avshalom. So Yoav ben Tzeruya, he's a general, and he feels from the king that the king wants Avshalom back. I mean, he has feelings for him. He's devastated that he left. Vayeda Yoav ben Tzeruya ki leiv hamelech al Avshalom. Vayishlach Yoav tekoya. So he sends Vayishlach Yoav. He sends him to Tekoya. Now listen to this very interesting story. Tekoya is a place. Kiva, I'm still. Tekoya is a place where wise people lived. Why was Tekoya such a wise place? Because in Tekoya there were olives growing. And olives, because I'll say that, somebody who eats olives and it brings chachma. There's a lot of shemazayas over there. Shemazayas brings a person to chachma. Tekoa was a place where it was known to have wise people. Vayikach misham isha chachama. So if you remember the story back with Bathsheba, it was a fascinating story how Nasan Hanavi gave over the message of Hashem's disappointment, let's call it, with David HaMelech. He came to him and he told him a mashul. He told him a metaphor of a poor man and a rich man. You remember the story with the poor man and the rich man? And one of them had one sheep. And then he called him and then he took away the sheep from him in order to make a feast. And David HaMelech got incensed at the injustice of the story. How could you go take away the one sheep from this poor guy? You have so many sheep yourself. And then Nasan Hanavi told him, Ato ish. It means he set him up with a metaphor, and then David HaMelech on his own gave the Nimshal, and once he gave the Nimshal, Nasan Hanavi connected the dots and he said, hey, you're that guy. That's why I always say that never kill a good Mashul with a Nimshal. Because a Mashul was made for you to find your own Nimshal. And once you find your own Nimshal, that's when it means something. But when, you sit in yeshiva, and this, the yeshiva, the mashgiach, or the darshan gets up and he says the mashal, and he says, Nimshal, everybody is on that. That's where you lost it. Because the Nimshal was never meant for someone to tell it to you. The Nimshal was always meant for you to discover your own inner Nimshal. Okay. Anyway, so listen to this setup over here. It takes a wise woman, and Yoav tells her, no, I want you to make yourself as if you're in mourning. You live, big day evil, go with clothes of a mourner, don't anoint yourself with oil. Be like a woman who walks around lamenting. In Rogel Bekino is say over all these different eulogies, and you set yourself up as somebody who's a bitter rachmanis, we say in Yiddish. Pity case. You go to the king. Yoav set her up with the idea, with the concept of the message, what she should get across, and then he trusted her that because she's an Isha Chachama, she'll find the right words how to get the message across. So this Isha HaTekoyas, this woman from Tekoa, comes fully in mourning clothes. Her eyes are puffy, her clothes are ragged. She's very clearly in a very, very distressed state of mourning, and she tells the king, "Vatipoil al apeo arzo vatishtochu, vatoimer Shia Melech," and she says, "Please save me, my king." What's happening? What happened to you? Now, remember that David HaMelech set himself up to be a shofet. Remember that. That's why Nathan Hanavi also came and brought him a mashul and brought him a case of a shofet where there was an injustice done to this poor person who his set was taken away. Because David HaMelech set himself up earlier, that he set himself up a whole back office, he took care of everything, and he was going to be the shofet to make sure that there's justice and tzedek, and he's going to run an anti-corruption operation. But I don't have a husband. My husband died, that's why he didn't come. And your servant has two sons, both of them were fighting in the field. And there was nobody who was able to come in between to save him. One brother came upon the other and killed him. Everybody, the whole family, stood up against me. Let's be vigilantes. Give over this brother who killed his brother. We're going to kill him. Now, even though there was no Edom, and even though there was no Asira, so really the halacha is that if there's no Asira, there's no Edom, so then it's Dino Masur Lashamayim. It gets given over to heaven. Nashmido Gamas Hayoresh V'chibu Es Gichalti. Nashmido Gamas Hayoresh. So they want to destroy the Yoresh. V'chibu Es Gichalti, and they're going to put out that last flame, that last flicker that I still have. Can you imagine? She says, if they're going to kill now my last son, then I'm left with nothing. So technically speaking, my son who killed the other son did something wrong, but there was no Edom, there was no Asira. Now this vigilante is coming, they want to just take revenge on him, and I'm going to be left with nothing. And my husband is not going to be left with any Yodesh, with nothing left. Go home. I'm going to tell your family that they have no right to touch your son. You know, it's really nice that you're saying it, but the buck stops by me. It's that, if the tragedy happened that my last son is going to get killed, you could have said that nobody should do anything, but I'm the one who's going to stay bereft with nobody, with no Yodesh and nobody to take over. V'amelech v'chisanoki, and the king, and his chair is going to be naki, is going to be clean. Anybody who wants to touch your son, send him to me. I'm going to tell him not to touch him. Toimer, she says, I want you to say it in the name of God. I want you to swear to me. Why? Because there's a lot of Goyel Adams who want to come to kill him. It's not one person, it's a bunch of people. And if the Melech is going to tell one person, somebody else is going to come and is going to kill me. But if the Melech is going to swear, then everybody's going to know that this is an untouchable situation and nobody's going to touch him. No one's going to destroy my son. And the king accepted her plea, which is a very rational plea. She wants to stay with something. But the name of the Lord, that not a hair from his head will fall to the ground. So now that he swore to her, which is really what she was trying to extract from him in the beginning, and the entire metaphor was set up, that the king swore that in a situation where one brother kills another brother, but there was no Edom and there was no Asira, that brother still maintains the right to live, and he's going to be protected by the word of the king. So now the setup is complete, right? Can I say something to you? He wanted to, she wanted to set him up now with the Nimshal. Yeah? You following? Why would anybody think such a thing on the nation of Hashem, that they would kill a son without witness, without warning? What the king just said, now what I'm going to tell you, the Nimshal, don't blame me now, don't backtrack now to say, Ka'ashem levilti Hashem HaMelech es nitcha. Don't say that this is not going to apply to your son that ran away from you, your son that was pushed away from you. Ki mois namus, because in the end we're all going to die. Me and you are all going to be dead. And like water that spills to the ground, there's no keli to get it. That's the way the souls of people are. That we don't come back into our bodies. We live here in this Gilgal one time. And God he's not yis upon him. He doesn't exempt anybody from dying. Everybody gets to die. Baruch Hashem. Nobody comes out of here alive. We have to always remember, nobody comes out of planet Earth alive. We all get out of here. You always have to know that there's always a way out of the mess. Eventually everyone's going to get out of here. Nobody gets out of here alive. Therefore, in order that somebody shouldn't die who wasn't meant to die, Hashem gave us Torah mitzvahs, and He gave us rules and regulations, that no one should be pushed behind. Now just in case, you've heard this line so many times, it comes from here. Means that a person doesn't get pushed away only when there's a specific system how you kill him. You can't paskin on your own how a person gets killed. So if there was no Edom and there was no Asira, even if you know what happened, you still don't have a right to be a vigilante to go kill him. Only if he was hoired by Edom v'Asira. And therefore, why is the king like in that Avshalom should get killed without any Asira, without Edom? Why is the word out that Avshalom he's a target to be killed for vigilantes because he killed Amnon? So you have to understand, she went into really, really, really messy territory over here. She really, really went like where she doesn't belong.
But she was hired.
She was hired. ועתה אשר בוצי לדבר המלך אדוני יש הדבר הזה כי ירוני העם והתואם שחוסך דבר נועל המלך. You know, I didn't come stam to go tell this Mashul to the king. I didn't tell him the Nimshal because I didn't want to talk to you about your son. Now, obviously, I can't talk to you about your son because it's like, why do people talk in metaphors? Why does the Torah talk in metaphors? Because we don't respond well when we get confronted. When you did something and somebody comes and confronts you and says, hey, why did you do that? Automatically, your defenses go up and you start coming up with a million explanations, justifications, and reasons. I saw one of this. You saw this. I don't know. In the beginning of the war in Ukraine, I found it very fascinating that whenever they interviewed Russian reporters, and they were trying in the beginning. I don't know if it's still going on. So you had all these Western, press giving interviews, and they were talking to Russian reps. So they were asking, why did you invade Ukraine? Why did Russia invade Ukraine? Is that a fair question to ask? Instead of getting an answer, I saw a few interviews where the Russians answered the same thing. The answer is, who are you to go tell me about invading other countries when you invaded Afghanistan and Syria and you've done all the greatest human rights violations? Who gave you the right that you should become giving musr to the nations of what we can do and what we can't do? So again, the question was, so what happens is like this. That means when I'm now in a difficult situation, when I'm vulnerable, So instead of responding to the question, we automatically do either character assassination or we do country assassination. We find somehow where I say, who are you to tell me? And therefore I avoided the entire confrontation. So this woman told David HaMelech, I can't go confront you about your son because, I'm pushing all the red buttons. So they sent me to speak as a Mashul, that when you're going to download the Nimshal, which you did, you'll be able to apply it to yourself when your justifications and rationalizations were bypassed. Just like you heard that I'm supposed to be saved, and I shouldn't be decimated and destroyed forever. Please, King, keep your word, and it's going to cause you manucha, it's going to bring you peace. If you're going to listen to your own Nimshal and you're going to allow your son Avshalom to come back, it's going to bring you manucha, it's going to bring you peace, and it's going to bring you lo yidach mimenu nidach. Just agav, I just want to finish this line. Just like a malach from Hashem, just like you're the king, and God shall be with you. I just want to say here something that's going to be controversial, but you should just put into context the psukim, what it means, lo yidach mimenu nidach. I want everybody to understand it over here. Nobody here has any doubt that Avshalom killed Amnon. There was no doubt in anybody's mind that Avshalom killed Amnon. There was also no doubt in anybody's mind that Avshalom killed Amnon without he killed him. There's no question about it. And there's also no question that although Avshalom may have been very justified to why Amnon was killed, or why he killed Amnon, because of the story with Tamar, there's still law and order, and you can't just go killing people even though you're upset. And this whole yidach mimenu nidach means that even though you're 100% sure that this person, Avshalom, killed somebody without any right, and he was 100% in the wrong for killing him, for extrajudicial killing, still lo yidach mimenu nidach was saying, lo yidach mimenu nidach, even somebody who was a murderer, and he killed somebody without a right, still lo yidach mimenu nidach, you can't push him away. So whenever it happens in society, and it happens, mizman l'zman that happens, where people know information. You know information that this guy did wrong. At least you assume you know information that this guy did wrong. And then people are choret dina. People say, this person deserves to die. And that the Pesukim say, lo yidach mimenu nidach. There's a system of how a person has to die. So you can have somebody who is accused of the worst things possible. And you have people who are saying that he did the worst things in the world, mamash. But until you don't have Edom, and you don't have Asirah, and you don't go to Bezdin, you don't have a system, you can't take the law into your own hand, and you can't kill people, and you can't kill people. You can't do things which are out of the system of the halachic parameters, where there's a bezdin and there's a lach, even though you know for 100% sure that this guy did something wrong. And everyone could apply it to whatever situations that go on.
In that system of knowing, the collective
There's
occur, that's what we know.
Correct.
You think you know, because you thought your knowing is that much of a high caliber of decision making, and then you make
It's a big problem. It's a big problem when you accuse people and you say, I know that he did it, and you accuse them, and you take the law into your own hand. In Novio, in the story of Nach, the story is lo yidach mimenu nidach, and David HaMelech said lo yidach mimenu nidach on his son Avshalom. So the story continues. Vayan HaMelech vayomer el Isha, Al not chachedi mimeni davar asher anochi shoyel oisach vatomer Isha yidaber Adonai HaMelech. The king says, I accept your story, but I want to know one thing. Vayomer HaMelech hayad Yoav itach b'chol zois. Was Yoav behind this whole story? Who set you up? Who told you this whole? Who sent you here? Why were you burning to come get Avshalom back. Who's behind you?
I thought she didn't use names though.
She was what?
She didn't use names.
She didn't. But the king asked her, who sent you?
But why is he saying Avshalom?
No, he said Yoav.
No. But he asked, Hayad Yoav Itach, he asked, he assumed that Yoav is the only one who will have an interest to bring Avshalom back. ותענו אישה ותאמר בחי נפשך אדוני המלך איש להימן ולהשמיע מכל אשר דיבר אדוני המלך כי עבדך יואב הוא ציווני והוא שם בפי סבכוס חזקה ורמל. She says, yep, king, you're right. Yoav is the one who sent me. Yoav is the one who was behind this entire setup, this entire metaphor, and he's the one who made a shachmat. He's the one who played a checkmate on you now, that you should come back. Why? Because because he wanted to get to a certain destination, and that's why he sent me with the Mashul that you shouldn't be able to block it. Anyway, I think this is a major point. I think it's a very important message for every person in their personal lives that you take out of the story. That whenever you want to confront somebody, don't. Unless you're mama's best buddies with him and you have that relationship with him where he wants you to tell it to his face and he's already coming to be makabel. But unless a person comes to you and he's saying, please tell it to me the way it is, and you know he's really ready to accept it, which is very rare, it happens. Most people, they say, yeah, sure, tell me, but you already have your defenses in your mind. But even though you're quiet and you shut up while you're being attacked, in your mind you're a whole time explaining away why this situation is different and why you weren't wrong and why, if you would know really what happened, then you would understand that. The limit from both stories of David HaMelech, both with Bathsheba and both with Avshalom, is that working with metaphors work. That means when you set up for a person a metaphor where he does not immediately connect the dots of what you're talking about, he just sees it from the outside perspective, objectively, and he himself gives the Nimshal on it, and then you just lead him enough that he should understand on his own that I am that Nimshal. That's the most effective way of getting somebody to change. The greatest master of this, Lahavdul Al-Fafa Avdalas, in the modern psychological world, was a guy, his name was Milton Erickson. He was the father of hypnosis. He died in the 1980s from Phoenix, Arizona. Milton Erickson was a master of metaphors. Like he used to do therapy. He had people come in with all different types of crazy problems. And he would just sit there. I'm going to give you an example. I just remember one story where there was this kid who came in who was bedwetting. And his parents were beyond, they gave up all hope already. And they brought in this boy, and the parents started telling Dr. Erickson that they brought in the son because he's bedwetting, and he said no, he doesn't want you to mix into his business, just get out of my room. So he took the side of the kid. So he threw the parents out of the room, and he started talking to them about baseball. He started talking to them about baseball. He said, what do you like? You know, your parents are nuts, they start making you crazy, they don't understand you. And he started talking to him about playing what he likes, baseball. And he started talking to him about how you catch a ball and how you have a mitt. Then you have to open your muscles and close your muscles. And how you have to know the exact time of when you open your muscle, when you close, and then when you open. And he would talk about opening the ball and closing it and releasing it, and how you have perfect timing. And this kid was totally in a trance about how his muscles are in control and how he catches and doesn't catch. At the end of the whole story, this kid came home, he started bedwetting. But he just told him the metaphor about how he has control over his muscles to know when to open and when to close, and open when to close, and when to close. And he was a master of these type of metaphors that empowered people without ever having to confront them about the actual issue and go into the nitty gritty. What?
He played
to talk about
be in the weakness.
I found it just fascinating that in the Navi we found already twice in a very short period 2 official metaphors that were set up.
And both times they work.
And both times they work. Anyway, so let's go back into the story. It's just good advice to remember. It's very good advice to remember. Never confront a person. You have in the Parshas Devarim also where you have that V'lav v'chatzeres v'dizah, where you have the Torah also talks in Mashul all the time. Shlomo Melech gave on every single thing in Torah Shloishes Alaf Mashul, 3,000 Mashul. Mashul Nimshal. Vayomer HaMelech al Yoav hinenu al Sisi es hadavar hazeh. So the Melech calls Yoav and he says, "Hey, I heard that you set up this woman to come to me and to set up Baruch Shalom. I heard that you did a good job. Shalom. V'lech asher v'senaros of Shalom." You're the one who started the process. You cornered me. L'chaim, you bring back Avshalom. V'yipol Yoav upon Artav yishtachu v'yivarech es HaMelech. V'yomer Yoav hayom yod avdecha. K'motzot zichem b'necha Adoni HaMelech asher oso HaMelech es dvar avdecha. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you for giving into my request. And he saw it as like that he's doing a favor for the king, that he said he that really the king wants to bring back Avshalom. So he set him up, the story, in order that the king should be stuck because of a shua that he should have to bring him back, and therefore he's justified by the eyes of the masses why he brought back Avshalom. You understand the complex situation of him? He was helping David because he felt that David wants him back. But he knew that David couldn't ask him to come back because he's a murderer. Wow. So he set up this lady to make him swear on the metaphor. And because he swore on the metaphor, therefore he was stuck and he had to bring him back. Now that he brings him back, the king has no choice. He says, "Hey, what should I do? I swore about this case. I have to bring him back." So he's really doing a favor for the king to bring back his killer son that he wants. And he tried, and he was telling him, the Mincha Ketana says that he was like, he had a guilty trip. The Yoav had a guilt trip that he killed the Avner. If you remember the story back in the day, Yoav killed Avner. Avner was the other general from Shaul, the one who came over on his side. And he killed him because he killed his brother Esoy, or whatever his name was. So now he was trying to give back a favor for the king. He brings back Avshalom to Yerushalayim. The problem is that even though after he brought him back, and technically he brought him back, the problem is that he was still giving Avshalom the silent treatment. He wasn't talking to him.
Who, David?
David. So he brings back Avshalom because the setup was good, but he still can't bridge the gap that he still killed Amnon and it's still in the street. It's not a good story over here. Let him go back, but let him make sure he shouldn't walk past me. He should go from a roundabout way. He should be able to come back home, but from a side door, not around me. He shouldn't see my face. So he comes from a roundabout way. He makes sure that he doesn't see the face of the king. He doesn't want to meet his son yet.
It's a major upgrade. Not by Jewish people, this would have been bloodshed instead of these refined dealings. These refined dealings are an unbelievable progressive way of
especially in the context of 2,000 years ago. So here we go on a tangent. We tell you about Avshalom. Avshalom was a beautiful person. If you remember, Avshalom was the son of a Yifas Toya. So he was a beautiful guy. Lahalel Ma'od. He saw himself as a royal Malchus, but he was a beautiful body. He had a six-pack. He was a beautiful person of Shalom from the head to bottom. Don't forget that his sister Tamar, right, was a beautiful woman. That's why this whole story with Amnon happened.
Kingly genes.
Not only was he beautiful, but the hair from his head was exceedingly beautiful, and he was a Nazir. When he shore off his head, he choved all of the gilchoy v'shakal asaroshoy. You know, people have this minhag where they take 3-year-old kids, and when they cut off their head by halakha, when the 3-year-old are upset, they weigh the hair, and they give the weight in gold for tzedakah. So people have that minhag. Avshalom, when he shore off his head from being a nazir, and he had these long, beautiful curls, when they weighed it, and they made the cheshbon of the weight, it was Masayim Shkolim be'Evan HaMelech. That means his hair was extremely, extremely valuable, beautiful locks of hair.
Thick, strong hair.
Thick, strong hair. V'yavoldu l'Avshalom, Shlosh Banim Uvas Achashmo. Avshalom had 3 sons and 1 daughter. Uvas Achas Ushma Tamar, and her name is Tamar. I would assume that it's after his sister. Again, you have this crazy trip in the Torah. I didn't figure out yet what I'm going to come to it one of these days. I'm going to find a sefer that talks about it. He also Isha Yifas Mara. This Tamar was also Isha Yifas Mara. So Tamar is an Einikel now. There's already 3 Tamars. There's 1 Tamar from Yehuda. Then you have Tamar.
They're all beautiful.
And then you have Avshalom, daughter Tamar. Right, then you have Avshalom, daughter Tamar, who's also Isha Yifas Mara, also a beautiful woman. So, whatever, it's just
amazing. You have the best nation, best women.
it's just fascinating that all the Tamars are like beautiful women who end up making issues. Could you imagine? Avshalom lived in Yerushalayim. He was led back in, but he wasn't seen by the king for 2 years. He didn't see the king for 2 years. And even when his children died, his father didn't come to me Menachem. Avshalom's children. So he felt that his father let him back for technical reasons, but he doesn't really love him. There's a chasm between them. So he sends Yoav to the king, and he says, "Hey, could you please get me back to my father? I want to meet him." But the Yoav didn't want to go because he knew that the king is not going to want to see him. He sends him a second time with shluchim. He didn't want to go. That means Yoav said, "Look, I did the job. I brought you back. I can't do more than this." So Avshalom gets upset, and he tells his king, "You see my field? Right next to my field, Yoav also has a field. My field is next to his." You know that he has this field of barley? I think we should light it on fire. If you could make by mistake a bonfire that by mistake should fry out his field, that would be really interesting. So the Avdei Avshalom go and they light Yoav's field on fire. It's like, I always say, years ago I used to go fundraising. I still go fundraising, but back in the day, before WhatsApp, so the club was, I had a club. If you called the guy and he picked up his phone, then there was nobody to talk to. Then you knew that you have nobody to talk to. If you know, he's like Stam driving he's a minivan. Yeah, no, he's driving maybe a Ellie, whatever it's called, Honda Ellie.
Base model.
Yeah, base model. If you call the guy and his voicemail box was full, okay, then you know you're talking to Alexis, you know. There's somebody worth talking to. If you call the guy and his voicemail box was not set up yet, you took the Range Rover, you know, then you're like, wow, chashav. Today with WhatsApp it's different because nobody has voicemail anymore, but those days it was like, yeah, his voicemail box is not been set up yet. Oh, l'chaim. So, how do you get somebody when his voicemail box is not set up yet? How do you get him to call you back? you burn his field. Usually when you burn somebody's field, they call you back. Maybe you scratch his car and you leave a note on it and you say, hey, I scratched your car. Usually that's how you get, you scratch the Range Rover, you got them to call you back. Usually that works. I'm giving you Eitz HaTov. If you ever want to get to like a major guy, there's a lot of gatekeepers, scratch his car. How much does it cost to scratch? $1,200.
Depends on the car.
You're probably calling him for $24,000, so you'll pay the $1,200. Scratch again. You'll deduct it from it. You'll deduct it. And if he doesn't give it to you, let him stay with the scratch. Anyway, Vayakam Yoav. Vayovel of Shalom Aboisa. So Yoav comes home. And he comes to Avshalom's house. Why did you scratch my car? Why in the world did you just go? Did you just burn my field? Did you just burn my house down? Like, why did you burn my house down?
Answer your phone.
I sent you a messenger saying I'm trying to call you. He says, I was trying to call you. You didn't call me back. I called you once, I called you twice, I called you 3 times. I left a voice note with your secretary. I left you a note on your car. Somehow you weren't getting my messages. And I figured that maybe a little heat could warm you up. And by the way, now that you called me about the field, just wanted to ask you, why in the world did you bring me back to Yerushalayim? Why didn't you leave me over there in Geshoyed by my grandfather? I was better there than here. Over there I was with my grandfather, by Melech Geshoyed. Over there I wasn't embarrassed to walk in the streets. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared who I was. I'm living over there in Patton, in the Plishti territory by my mother's father. I got everything I want. And here my father isn't seeing me. Everybody laughs at me. And they say, Oy loy leben shegola me'al oviv. So, if you don't want your fields to be inspired by fire, I think it's time that we, Now look, if you still think that I have a sin, then kill me. But don't let me live like a yo-yo, wandering around without any
Validation?
No, without any existence. Yeah. Don't let me wander around like you called me back and you made me a nobody.
He says his father like that.
He tells Yoav,
Okay, sorry.
he tells Yoav, you called me back, I came back, I'm now Peter. I was better off in Geshoyed as a fugitive than coming back and being a persona non gratis.
Well, see, Yoav wasn't doing this to help Avshalom. Yoav was doing this to
help David. But David is obviously not making the move to, and Yoav is only going to make the move as much as Avshalom is interested. But Yoav al-Melech. So Yoav sees that he got the message. He goes to the king, Vayaged loy, and he tells him the whole story. Vayikra Avshalom, and David says, you got it. He calls Avshalom. Vayovel al-Melech, Avshalom comes to the king. Vayishtachu loy al-Apov. He bows down before the king. And the king kisses Avshalom. And that's how they reconcile.
Why would they call it so strange?
Huh? That's how they reconcile. And that's how Avshalom gets back to have a relationship with his estranged father after he was alienated, and he comes back home.